Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Why eating liver is killing you? Debate Thor live on X. U.S. national news, digital creators, organic foods, fitness influencers. Couldn't even leave that topic out. So a lot of people are consuming liver. A lot of people are consuming liver these days. More than 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago, liver is a new fad. It's a new thing. It's a gimmick. You don't want fads with your diet. You don't want fads with your supplements. You don't want fads with your food. Success leaves a lot of clues. Winners leave breadcrumbs. These fads come and go. It's one thing if you're wearing baggy jeans and then next year it's tight jeans. That's not as detrimental as a fad like eating liver. So have you been consuming liver and not feeling good, or were you a person that ate it and maybe you had a honeymoon period, but then you had health problems? This space is for you. Right off the jump, 4 ounces of liver, 4 ounces of beef liver is over 600% of your recommended daily value for vitamin A. 4 ounces of beef liver, that's less than your average steak. I know people are eating more than that. People are eating huge chunks of liver, so if they're eating 8 ounces of liver, that's 1,200% of their daily recommended value, right? And that's not including the copper. And a lot of the people we are testing are copper toxic. They are high in copper. We had a lady who was tested very high in copper. She was eating liver every day, do chicken pate. And this is a way that people hide the taste of liver. They add fat to it, and that makes it goes to the cells even worse. So in my opinion, no one should be eating liver. And guys like Paul Saladino say that, oh, if you eat this little amount, you're fine. So he's admitting it's toxic, right? You're admitting it's a poison because you're telling people they have to eat a small amount of it. Are there some good nutrients in there? Sure. Are there some good enzymes in there? Sure. Because it's the liver, it has to have that in there. It's not worth the trade-off, right? It's causing hypervitaminosis A in a lot of people. So what's the definition of hypervitaminosis A? Hypervitaminosis A. It's also known as vitamin A toxic. It's a condition where a person has too much vitamin A in their body. And this can happen through supplements. This can happen through creams. This can happen through acne medications. This can happen through plants, like we had on our podcast. We had Leah Miller, who got vitamin A toxicity through an all plant-based diet. And this can also happen from liver. And there's studies that show, there was a study on rats in 1944. Guys, 1939 is when hypervitaminosis A came into the lexicon. 1939 was the first medical term of hypervitaminosis A. This thing's been around for a while. Okay, you had the discovery in 1906. You had 1913 where they named it vitamin A, the discovery. Hotep Jesus did a post today that he said there was a screenshot of some lecture, and the word discovery is a colonizer term. It's a racist white colonization term, which is funny, and it's something that I like to bring up a lot because you have people arguing with me. People are very proactive on the race discussion, on the culture war discussion, on the sexism and the this and that. But when it comes to health and wellness and vitamins, then all of a sudden they turn a blind eye. There's no difference, right? So if you are against colonizers and all this kind of stuff, but in the same breath you're saying vitamin A is a vitamin, you've lost the argument before it even began, right? Because these same evil people supposedly founded this. So hypervitaminosis A is a condition that occurs when a person has too much vitamin A in their body. And what are some of the symptoms? Vision problems, changes in skin, bone pain, and liver damage, right? It's also known as vitamin A toxicity. It can be acute or it can be chronic. You can get vitamin A toxicity if you took Accutane, or you can get vitamin A toxicity if you eat liver for 20 years, right? Just how they did studies on cigarettes where it's 30, 40 years later, you get lung cancer. We're going to see studies on vitamin A and stuff like liver, where 10, 15, 20 years, depending. There's also a remarkable study that on lung cancer, they tested cigarette smokers, and the cigarette smokers who gave a high vitamin A diet were dying of lung cancer, whereas the cigarette smokers who didn't had a low vitamin A diet weren't getting lung cancer at all. That's a conversation for another day, but it's a valid one. So it depends on the age of the cattle too, right, guys? The older the cattle, the older the cow, the more toxic that liver is going to be. So we're getting a lot of people in the low vitamin A community. We're getting a lot of people from the carnivore diet. We're getting a lot of people from the Western A price diet, very high in cod liver oil. And we're getting a lot of people from the Ray Peat diet that these people are sick. So you might see a young person on here in their 20s advocating for Ray Peat, and they're doing fine. Their liver hasn't stored the toxins yet, right? Whereas we're getting real life humans coming to us and saying, hey, I did that for 10 years. I did that for 5 years, whether they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're banged up, right? They're banged up. And they're not these big name accounts with thousands of followers. These are people who are just normal people who are trying to get healthy. That's the problem with this vitamin A conversation and this vitamin A toxicity and this poisoning is most people were doing this quote unquote right thing. Most people wanted to get better. They were checking the boxes. And when this liver fad came along, they thought that that was going to be this saving grace, this new thing, this multivitamin. It is being marketed to us as nature's multivitamin, which is interesting because so are eggs, right? So we're getting people from carnivore diet. Why are we getting people from carnivore diet? Because the carnivore diet, like most things that go mainstream, get bastardized. When the masses get involved, things get saturated. Things go left, things go sideways, and you have a group of people who are just eating muscle meats and maybe a few eggs that are thriving and doing fine, although they are putting a pause button on their bile, and they are putting a pause button, and they could have dysbiosis problems and bifida problems. I'm in the spaces. Can you guys in the spaces? Okay. I knew that was going to happen. Can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me, mother. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. There we go. Okay, cool. So we're getting these people from these fad diets, and the thing with the carnivore diet is you have people who got bored on just muscle meats, as they should be bored on muscle meats. Loving the thumbs up. Loving the thumbs up. Let's break the algorithm. And guys, real quick, please repost this. Please reply with questions below. Please tag a liver lover. Maybe they love their liver and they want to protect it, or maybe they love animal liver and we want to save them from the disaster that is making a habit of eating a detox organ. Repost, reply. And guys, also, real quick, One of Ones is 9 members away from 500. And I'm going to give a special treat to the 500th member. We're 9 members away. Let me put a special treat is coming your way. What should we give them? We'll talk about that in the Q&A section. And I'll pin the little link to join One of Ones. Bing, bong, boom. So, muscle meat, carnivore. People are getting bored and they're mixing in organ meats. They're mixing in now. Then you see them go to raw milk. Then you see them go to colorful plants. You're seeing it in Paul Saladino now, where he's pivoted a few times, which is almost a good indicator that you'll probably see him pivot down the road, although pivoting off the organ meats will be way more challenging for him because he sells them. So he's got an extreme bias and extreme blinders on about this subject because he's profiting heavily from selling desiccated organ meat, right? They took this dried powder of a detox organ that was pretty much worthless. The margins are insane on. No one wanted to eat liver. And that brings me to another point, guys. When we're talking tribal life and we're talking his history, how many people in the average Native American tribe, let's just give that as an example, whether it's 300, 200, they didn't get too big. Then you look at a bison, anywhere from 500 to 800 pounds of meat. A liver only weighs 10 pounds. So who was eating this liver? It wasn't everyone, and it was not every every day. Some could argue, and this is a good argument, that it was reserved for the king or the nobility or the chief. And as we know historically, the kings and the chiefs, those were the fat guys. Those were the guys that were actually a little bit more sick. Let's look at vitamin A slowly poisoning the entire body and some of the most common symptoms. GI issues, intestinal tract, celiac, Crohn's, irritable bowel. Then you have cognitive issues, brain fog, anxiety, depression. Big one is anxiety. I haven't met one person yet that's gone on a low vitamin A diet and has been less anxious. This doesn't mean they specifically had a diagnosed anxiety disorder. I was never an anxious person on the surface. I'm the opposite of anxious now. I was already cool, looked cool and calm. It's one thing to look calm and collected. It's another thing of how you're feeling internally. And how I'm feeling internally is beyond what I could have ever imagined, as far as not bothered, not anxious. Someone tries to rattle me, good luck to them. It's very hard to rattle me. This is how we were designed to be. I'm even having this weird phenomenon where I could tell how original man was hunting these animals and not afraid of them. Like, I'm looking at animals like I'm not afraid of that animal. They should be afraid of me. And like, I'm the apex predator. It sounds crazy, but I swear to God, it's true. Like, if I see like mean dog or something, the dog almost looks at me and can feel it too. That guy's a fucking unanxious savage. But anxiety, depression, skin issues are a big one with vitamin A toxicity. Eczema and psoriasis, especially in the people who did too much beta carotene, people who did too much plants. Because the vitamin A from liver, retinol palmitate, gets stored more in the liver, right? Doesn't that make sense? The affinity for it, as when you're putting in beta carotene in, these things are pretty much all getting converted to the same things, but there's different metabolisms on the detox pathway when it gets split into two. All forms, though, some form a little bit gets turned into 13-cis-retinoic acid, which is the main ingredient in Accutane. And when you look at symptoms of hypervitaminosis A and compare them to the symptoms of Accutane and Retin A, they're actually the exact same. So you see people go on Accutane, they are suicidal, they're anxious, they're low libido, they're low testosterone, they have erectile dysfunction, chapped lips for years, dry eyes, hair thinning, problems with teeth and gums, because we know as vitamin A is an antagonist to vitamin K, and vitamin K deficiency is what's causing these bleeding gums. If you're photosensitive, if you have mouth ulcers, poor bone density and bone development, osteoporosis, now we're linking, Dr. Garrett Smith is linking this, Gretchen Ruse talked about it, Anthony Mawson. Osteoporosis has been linked to vitamin A toxicity. The vitamin A leaches the calcium from the bones. It's diabolical what this stuff is doing, and the more you research it, it is undeniable that you could never call this thing a vitamin, because it does just way more harm than good, if it even does any good, which the more you research it, it really doesn't. It does no good. And then you have people who are adding this liver to fat, like butter or pate. Even worse, you're giving it a carrier. People have to make it with bacon and onions. They have to mask the taste because it tastes disgusting. Liver tastes disgusting. Most people will spit out liver, or they have to hide it in capsules, right? That's where this thing went really, really tragic, that they had to put it in a bottle and put it in a capsule. So now people cannot use their divine intuition. They can't use their God-given taste buds to know this thing is trash, and they're just putting it down their throat without even knowing it's disgusting. Liver tastes like a battery. That's the copper and that's the toxins. Your body knows. I tried to give my dog liver, it would not eat it. And other people have said a lot of the same thing. Their dog would not eat the liver. And then they say, oh, you got to mix the liver in the muscle meat. So you're tricking the dog. It's horrible. When I first got my dog off kibble, there was vitamin A fortified in his kibble, as well as like sweet potato and another high vitamin A food. My dog was, for 3 or 4 days, throwing up and diarrhea, yellow, in the backyard, having a massive detox from vitamin A palmitate. We see the same things in the low vitamin A community. You have people's serum levels increasing dramatically. It's very interesting. There'll be a honeymoon period, 2-3 months, it varies. And then for some people on a low vitamin A, their symptoms will come back and they'll come back worse. And then you check their blood and their vitamin A serum is rising because their liver is finally, a sigh of relief, dumping it. The liver is detoxing itself. And this is very important to note and speak about, because that could scare people away from this diet. That could make them quit, or they could get impatient. And if they don't know why that's happening, and if they're not blood testing, if they're not doing the hair test, if they're not working with somebody who knows what they're doing, they could quit before they get there. Or maybe they're not doing their soluble fiber, and they're not able to eliminate that vitamin A and those toxins through that toxic bile, right? And the storage form in that liver is vitamin A palmitite, which is the second most toxic form compared to retinoic acid. Retinoic acid is the most toxic form. And that's what we're seeing getting dumped from the liver in this detox. So it's a poison going in, and it's also a poison going out, and you can feel that, right? You can feel that. But just know there's a light at that end of the tunnel. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and you cannot reverse decades of damage, decades of intake in a 30-day cleanse or a weekend cleanse or a juice fast. That's not how our body works. That's not how the liver works. The liver can spend a lot of years saving your life. The liver will store this so it's not in your other tissues. Your liver is your shield, your governor. Your liver is your filter. Imagine a filter on your sink in your kitchen and you just never change it, or you never give it a break, or you're putting hard water through it, right? What filter, if your filter putting distilled water through your filter, it's going to last a lot longer than if you're putting something toxic through that filter. The filter's going to go faster. The human body is the same way. Your liver and kidneys are your filter. What you're putting in your mouth and how you're putting it in is going to affect your overall health. And this is a huge one. Let me see where I had this study. Here it is. Liver disease is a silent disease, guys. And this is an argument and a debate we get into a lot in this community. And when we're talking health, and this is another way, I don't know if the modern medicine is in on this. I don't know if it's part of the whole toxic A, big dairy to pharma pipeline, but a doctor will tell a lot of people they don't have any problems with their liver. And we'll hear it all the time. Oh, my liver enzymes were fine. Early detection of silent liver issues is tough. This is a gray area. Dr. Garrett Smith says this a lot, like the car is working fine until it isn't. Car's working fine, and then it just shuts down on the side of the road, and you're like, what happened? Oh, I probably wasn't getting an oil change. I was probably putting bad fuel or oil in it. Then you start to remember all the stuff you were doing. Let's look at how many of these systemic symptoms and how many go with the skin. All right, symptoms of liver cirrhosis: general fatigue. If you're always tired, that's a sign your liver is burdened. If you're low energy, your liver's not clean. Your liver's not working right. And if you're masking it with massive amounts of caffeine, all you're doing is raising epinephrine and norepinephrine, and all you're doing is hitting the adrenal fatigue response, and you're raising cortisol, and then you're becoming addicted to that. You're masking your symptoms, and we see a lot of biohackers. Dave Asprey's a big coffee guy, right? So if you have general fatigue, that's a symptom of liver cirrhosis. Anorexia, weight loss, feeling of enlarged abdomen. You can see it sometimes in these bodybuilder guys. Protruding stomach. They'll have a six-pack with like a beer belly. And you can see it sometimes on their right side even. Swollen abdomen or legs. Nosebleed. Bleeding from the limbs. Jaundice or itchiness. Itchiness is a big one with vitamin A toxicity. That's one of the first symptoms I had actually in my early 20s that I overcame. I was very itchy. And then physical findings: skin pigmentation, spider veins, finger clumping, man boobs. Bad breath is a big one. If you have bad breath, a lot of times that is coming from a toxic internal system. You're not going to floss. You're not going to scrape your tongue. You're not going to brush your teeth. You can tell these people who have the dragon breath, as I call it, that's coming from their putrefied toxic dump inside their stomach. You can tell a lot from someone's breath. If that's you and you're drinking seltzer and you're having a high vitamin A diet, you got to check yourself, because the liver is known as a silent organ. When a liver failure occurs, a lot of times the symptoms go unnoticed. This is the same thing with high blood pressure. It's the silent disease. It's one of the things I had go away. I had high blood pressure, totally went away on a low vitamin A diet, which is massive because I don't have to take meds. I don't have to take the Nacotinase or whatever these supplements are that everyone's recommending. But when liver function declines, you will start to age. Your body's going to feel sluggish. You're going to feel tired. You might lose your appetite, and you're going to develop those symptoms I just mentioned. And if you have any of those symptoms, it's time to check in. Listen to your body. There was a time where you felt good, and maybe now you don't feel good, or you're not feeling as good as you did. Listen to your body. Let's fix up your liver. The classification of liver cirrhosis is determined according to the appearance of the symptoms, because a lot of times the cirrhosis test and the enzymes is too late. So jaundice is a big one, or any type of yellowing of the skin, or you see yellow fingernails, or you see yellow teeth, or yellow eyes. What color is vitamin A? It's yellow. And liver cirrhosis is basically a hardening of the organ. If you have health problems, all, if not nearly all, are directly related to cholestasis, directly related to your liver being injured or damaged. And the crazy part here, guys, is most people think, and I was guilty of this, for me, the liver was like, oh, it's just beer and liquor, pills and prescription drugs, maybe some topical chemical pharma stuff. Never in a million years did I think liver damage and vitamin A, liver damage and vitamin D3. So this is an important subject to bring to the light, because people do not realize that they're hurting their liver from these quote unquote healthy things. They just don't realize. And then another thing with this toxic form of retinoic acid in the blood, toxic bile in the blood, if the toxic bile is going backwards and you have the GERD and the heartburn, as your vitamin A storage goes up in your liver, guess what else goes up? Okay, your LDL cholesterol levels will go up. Guess who has the highest LDL that doctors have ever seen? Paul Saladino. Paul Saladino has the highest LDL anyone's ever seen. And there's a great debate going on right now about LDL. The jury's still out. Some experts say it's nothing. Other experts say it's something. To me, when the answer is I don't know, it's a no. And what we do know, when you do a deeper dive, we like to put things in super layman's terms and make them super logical and simple. It's not the LDL particles itself, it's what's inside those particles. And guess what's inside those particles? You got it, vitamin A. So the LDL is actually storing that vitamin A inside it. So what we need to be doing and checking as good researchers and investigators is polling the people and scaling these communities and saying, okay, if you're just a muscle meat carnivore, which is the rare ones now, what's your LDL? Usually these people have, and I've been looking into it, the muscle meat carnivores usually have low LDL. But the people in the carnivore community that are doing the organs or the milk, and then they go to the colorful fruits, you see their LDL way up. Oh, correlation doesn't equal causation. No. These studies, unofficial studies, are the most important. Dr. Garrett Smith, I think, has over 2,000 members in his community. We have 500 members in our community. Grant Rue has hundreds in his forum. He's got a free forum, and all due respect to him, it gets a little bit crazy and bastardized in there. You know, all these experts and gurus, they want me to make a free school community because that's the way for me to grow faster or grow more or be a better business. And I'm like, I don't want a free school community. It's just going to be spending time of just toxic humans in there creating a mess. So poll these communities, check in. Guys, we are going to be in this for the marathon. This is a marathon. All we have to do is sit back and watch and wait. You are going to watch these people fizzle out, okay? Because I was one of these people, and I had to make a lot of wrong decisions to find the right decisions, to find the final destination, to realize everything I first was taught and learned was the correct way, was looking at the liver, and we have such a massive piece of the puzzle. So that jury is still out with the LDL, and it's basically a stalemate. And when something's an I don't know, that means it's a no. And which camp would you rather be in? Would you rather be in the highest LDL doctors have ever seen, or just like normal LDL where they're like, yeah, you know, nothing to worry about? When the doctor says, hey, you got the highest LDL we've ever seen, your answer should not be like, nah, that doesn't matter. Like, I'm gonna prove to you why that doesn't matter. And it's the same conversation when we show him all these studies of why liver is toxic and poisonous. The answer is, oh, we'll take less of it and we don't have any human trials. That's a whack answer, dude. That's a super whack answer. It's like hundreds of people are getting sick. And let's read some reviews. Reports of adverse reactions after the ingestion of desiccated liver pills. These are Amazon reviews, straight from Amazon. Let me find this article and let me post it here. And let me pin it to the top so some of y'all can read along even. Here is the article. This was a person who gets what's going on. They decided to make a blog post about it. So more power to them. I'm going to pin this to the top. Let's read a few of these. B. Murphy worked up to 5 pills. Recommended dosage are 6 a day. The morning after, sour stomach, headaches, threw up twice. This stuff messed me up good and kept me in bed the whole day. If I got up, I became nauseous. Acute poisoning was probably already toxic. Put him over the edge. One of the top symptoms of vitamin A toxicity is migraines. Kerry Patton bought the liver pills to treat fatigue, took half a dose in the AM, half in the PM. Result? Terrible headache, nausea, dizziness, terrible joint pain, much more than usual. Key word, she's admitting she already had joint pain. She likely already had vitamin A toxicity. See, here's the problem, guys. People who are vitamin A toxic, people who aren't doing well, they're out here in the wild, wild west of this health space, and they're just looking for opening up every door. Oh, here's the plant-based door. Here's the rainbow diet door. Ah, still don't feel good. Here's the fish oil door. Here's the vitamin D3 door. Oh, here's the liver supplement door. And some people have all those doors open at the same time and are just throwing it all in the mix. You're doing too much. Every new thing you add in, your liver is crying for help. Your liver is your CFO. Your liver is your vice president. Your liver is your top employee. And the more work you give your liver, the worse your business is going to run. And everybody wants an accountant for their business, but who's accounting for your health? And to truly account for your health, don't you think you have to track a fat-soluble toxin intake? Of course you do. Of course you do. That's why we are the health accountants. We are the Robin Hoods of health, bringing people's health back. And we're not doing it by selling any bullshit. We're selling a community membership due where we can all do this together, and you can track your progress with people who have already had massive success with it and help you guide along the way. These guys will give you these pills, and then they will just sit in their fucking beachside thing in Costa Rica, and if you have a bad review, that's your problem. That's your problem. That's not a doctor. That's a salesman and a used car salesman at that. Terrible joint pain, more than usual. Unbelievable fatigue came out of nowhere. Another huge sign that the liver's rocked. Cognitively, I felt exceedingly slow, as if my brain was shutting down. It was borderline surreal. Not being convinced that it was really the pills that caused the reaction, she gave them another try by ingesting 3 more the morning after. And result, not long after I swallowed, however, the same awful symptoms I'd experienced the day prior reared their ugly head. The headache I thought had been waning waxed. I felt fatigued, my brain felt foggy, and oddly enough, I had trouble stringing together sentences. This is another massive thing we see on a low vitamin A diet, guys. We have people who are getting off of brain fog. That's one of the testimonies I love to see when people say my brain fog went away, and I didn't have to sell them Alpha Brain. They didn't have to take some weird cognitive booster synergistic mix I think these guys that on it sell Alpha Brain for like $90 a bottle, something crazy. There's people spending $300, $400, $500 a month on supplements, most of which were masking symptoms. So Bianca, here's another review. Bought the liver pills to treat Hashimoto's. After taking just 2 pills, even though there were 6 recommended, I felt miserable. She felt so dizzy, and it gave her anxiety. She brushed it off, though, and took another pill on day 3. 10 minutes later, she had her first panic attack ever. First panic attack of her entire life, and she took a liver pill. She said, I felt this awful rush in my body. Her heart rate went up to 120 beats per minute while she was sitting down, and she felt so terrified she had no idea what to do. I tried to eat something and go for a walk, but it took me about 12 hours for my heart rate to go back to normal. That's the copper. That's a classic sign of copper toxicity is irritability, heart rate rising, insomnia. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet I did earlier where the guy had copper sheets. I didn't even know they were selling copper sheets, but he got super rocked off of copper sheets, which is very interesting and shows you that these things are toxic. We're not playing guessing games. People are coming in with blood and hair tests with extremely high copper serum levels, and then you antagonize it with minerals that matter, and then they get better. You don't have to argue with fools on the internet when we're actually doing this in real life with real humans, like practitioners practicing. Check out this review from Yasmin after she ate liver pills from Amazon. After 15 days of taking this, I ended up in the emergency room and was admitted in intensive care unit for another 3 days. Immediate reactions after the first time she ingested the pills: she had stomach pain for an hour, then lowered the number of pills down to 2 pills, but stomach ache continued, and she nevertheless continued with the pills. On day 15 in the morning, she had dark water stools every 10 minutes. By noon, she started throwing up black blood. She says she nearly bled to death from an ulcer. She says, I passed out from the loss of blood and was taken to the ER by an ambulance. She was diagnosed with an ulcer, inflamed stomach lining, and she tested positive for H. pylori with gastritis. Dude, guys, this shouldn't be happening from buying a supplement on Amazon. Most time you read a bad review on Amazon, it's like, oh, the bottle showed up broken. These are broken humans. And this is only 5 reviews in. Okay, we're going to skip 5. We're going to skip 6. Let's go to number 7, MKW. In my case, only 3 capsules caused vitamin A toxicity after around 2 weeks. So this person knows what happened. For me, this meant my oily skin was suddenly extremely dry and leathery, and I had severe and frightening mood changes, profound drowsiness, irritable, and confusion. This sounds like the symptoms of Accutane, all of which are very unlike me. This was going on for over a week until he figured out what was going on. Once he did, he didn't completely stop them, and he still takes 1 pill per day because it helps him sleep. That's a special type of moron. I wonder what he's doing now. When you see these symptoms of vitamin A toxicity and these common themes keep coming up of irritability and confusion and anger and anxiety, how many relationships are getting ruined from vitamin A toxicity? How much of our divorce rate really has to do with vitamin A toxicity? How much of our divorce rate is just hurt livers and hurt people and just angry people? This trickles down to our bottom line in multiple areas. We're talking relationships could have been saved. We're talking family ties not being broken. People arguing over the worst stuff. People getting the most petty stuff. People getting angry over nonsense. We've totally lost this community and this tribe-like mind and this loyalty system where you have family members that don't even talk to each other, or people who have a relationship and then they become strangers. It's not good, guys. You fix your liver and you can fix your entire life. And that's what's so cool about building a community around low vitamin A. And what I see happening sooner than later is even maybe a low vitamin A dating app or a low vitamin A community where 2 people who fix their livers now want to build a relationship together because they've just rose above all the bullshit and they're just thriving on multiple levels. And it's like, hey, let's share this awesomeness together. God forbid you're thriving, you're clean, and then you get into a relationship with a toxic person. You will not be able to relate to that person at all. You're going to totally evolve to a whole different level than that person's on. So, hopefully if you're into this and you're having success, hopefully your loved one or your significant other is doing it too. And if they're not, you just got to deliver this subject in a different way to them. This person says, I only took 1 pill, thank God. There was dizziness, a sinking feeling when I laid down to try to sleep. I was up shivering and shuddering on and off for 6 hours. I thought I was low on electrolytes, so I ate a banana, drank some coconut water, smooth move tea, and then she took some vitamin D3. She took rat poison after she searched YouTube videos on vitamin A toxicity. So this is a huge mistake some people make. They come across this subject of vitamin A toxicity. They know vitamin A is toxic, and then they find out that vitamin D is an antagonist to vitamin A. So they start taking a bunch of vitamin D, and all they do is then become toxic and cholecalciferol rat poison. If they really wanted to do that, they would have had to go out in the sun or get a sun lamp. That is sunburn. If you're getting sunburn, that's another sign of vitamin A toxicity. And that's another indicator that a lot of people on the low vitamin A diet, they're not getting sunburn. They're not having adverse reactions to the sun, and they're not photosensitive. Let's get into that right now real quick. The whole vampire discussion, because this is a really good one. The whole vampire thing. The concept of vampire is an old concept, 1800s, way before the book, way before the movie, and you got to look at how that concept developed. And this is fascinating. The folklore surrounding the vampire phenomenon, it was in the Balkan area. It was in that region. If you look, there's a medical source of this myth. And like a lot of myths, they're based in fact. The Dracula vampire myth was based on a blood disorder called porphyria, which has been known for years. And guess who this porphyria became prevalent among? The nobility and royalty of Eastern Europe. And they thought it was an inherited blood disorder. And in a lot of ways it was, because we know just how a mom can give birth to a jaundiced child. You can inherit vitamin A toxicity from your mother. So they thought it was this inherited blood disorder that caused the body to produce less heme, which is a critical component of hemoglobin. But they also named this porphyria the vampire disease. Oh, and by the way, these quote unquote people who were getting this, they were known to be consuming blood and liver. So what was happening to these vampires that like to eat blood and liver? Sensitivity to sunlight. How do you kill a vampire? You put it out in the sun. How many people are walking around with sunglasses because they're photosensitive? Photosensitivity is a huge symptom of vitamin A toxicity. What's next with the vampires is the fangs. In addition to facial disfigurement, but the fangs were gum recession. The gums receding and expose the teeth, and they also have bleeding gums. Vitamin A toxicity causes gums to recede because it leaches K1. This is a huge other tell. What else? They had an aversion to garlic. Garlic, the sulfur, it shuts down the ADH and the ALDH detox pathway, what the body uses to detox vitamin A. They also couldn't look at themselves in the mirror, and that's a sign of anxiety. That's a sign of major depression, cognitive function. And there's people out there who do not like what they see in the mirror. And then there's people who go on low vitamin A diet are 3-4 years in, and it looks like they're aging in reverse. We're seeing a lot of it. So the original vampires were based on a medical condition that is literally the same thing as vitamin A toxicity. And now you have these people online telling you to eat liver, which was the food of the vampire. So say, hey, I'm not going to eat the food of the vampire. I'm not going to eat the detox organ, right? It's time to dispel the myth and the outright lie that vitamin A toxicity is impossible from eating liver. It's just not true. It's totally possible. Humans and animals get sick. There's humans that have died from vitamin A toxicity from just eating liver. Search wild boar, Italy, liver death. It can happen just from eating it once. Check out all these Amazon reviews that I just pinned here. People in the emergency room. There's a bunch of case studies. There's a bear liver killing rat study. Let me read a quote from this. Quote, it has long been known among Eskimos and Arctic travelers that the ingestion of polar bear liver by men and dogs causes severe illness. It has also been reported that the liver of certain seal is poisonous, although opinion on this point is less than unanimous. The very high content of vitamin A in the liver suggested that it might give rise to hypervitaminosis A if eaten more than small amounts. The ingestion of excess amounts of bear liver by rats led in one instance to a fatal vitamin A toxicity. So that's just another one. Then you have beef liver causing vitamin A toxicity in a cat. Quote, clinical summary, we report the first case of hepatic stellate cell lipidosis and hepatic fibrosis in a domestic cat that had been fed a diet based on raw beef liver. The findings of chronic liver disease coupled with diagnosis of hypervitamin A. As in human hepatology, if there is a dietary evidence to support increased intake of vitamin A, then hypervitaminosis A should be considered in the differential diagnosis of chronic liver disease in cats. And these are all studies, too, that we showed to Paul Saladino. I think we showed him like 50 studies. There's another pork liver causing vitamin A toxicity in cats. And if you have dogs or cats at home, check the food you're giving to them, because you'll see that there's liver in it. You'll see that there's kidneys in it. You'll see that there's fortifications of vitamin A in it, and you can save your animal. And this is why animals are not living as long as they should, and they're getting cancers, and the veterinarian bills are out of this world. It's totally unfair. There's another one, sheep liver causing vitamin A toxicity in kittens. Severe retardation of growth with retention. Oh wow, this link is a broken link now. It was taken down for some reason. More liver causing vitamin A toxicity in a cat. A 10-year-old cat that was kept on a diet consisting largely of raw liver was evaluated because of lethargy, partial anorexia, and weight loss of several months' duration. The cat's head and neck were rigidly extended, and a hard mass was palpable in the ventral cervical region. Cervical and thoracic radiography revealed proliferative bony lesions of the cervical and thoracic vertebrae, as well as of the sternum and costal cartilages. Serum vitamin A concentration was 4 times normal, right? So another case of extreme vitamin A poisoning from eating liver, in a cat. And then people say, oh, well, we're not cats and we're not dogs. It's the same thing. They just have smaller livers, so they die quicker. It'll take you longer to die, but you're still slowly dying. Here's a good one. The oldest suspected case of vitamin A toxicity. Our oldest evidence relating the liver to disease is indirect, a probable case of hypervitaminosis A in the early human fossil, owing to the ingestion of excessive amounts of animal liver. The skeleton of Homo erectus, recovered from a site in Kenya, East Africa, and dated to 1.5 million years BP, showed periosteal bone deposition involving the long bones and skull. Thin sections prepared from the fossilized bone revealed that periosteal new bone to be coarse woven with enlarged, randomly placed lacunae. The same gross and historic pattern is seen in modern patients with chronic hypervitaminosis A, invariably owing to misguided self-medication. As fire had not been put to use, the soft liver would have been the only easily eaten part of animal kills. Carnivore liver contains toxic levels of vitamin A, and it may well have taken some period of time before early humans learned to avoid carnivore liver. So this is a fascinating study on some of the original humans that archaeologists find that they're linking this to them eating liver and vitamin A toxicity. Same thing with polar bear liver. 1957, they did a diary of Garrett de Veer. He wrote while taking refuge in the winter in Nova Zembla during an attempt to reach Indonesia by the Northern Passage. He stated in his diary he and his men became gravely ill after eating polar bear liver, and they feared for their lives, but ultimately recovered. And this article is called Hypervitaminosis A and Fractures. Then the sled dog liver. You have a bunch of people who became sick. 1969, this study was done. The diary of these sled dogs. On December 14th, the party was more than 311 miles from the Cape Denison hut. As Mert skied ahead, singing songs from his student days, Ninnis, the largest sledge and the strongest dog team, were lost when they broke through the snow lid of a crevasse. Together with the death of their companion, Mawson and Mertz were now severely compromised. On the remaining sledge, they had just 10 days' worth of food and no food for the dogs. They immediately turned back west, gradually using the 6 remaining dogs to supplement their food supply. They ate all parts of the animals, including the liver. So these guys got rocked. One of them dies. They escaped back to safety, and on the way, they got so hungry they ate their sled dog. And then here's the symptoms: hair, skin, weight loss, depression, skin infections, and then when they got to safety, they deducted they had too much vitamin A, which is found in unusually high quantities in the liver of Greenland dogs. Okay, just another case. Let's go to fish liver. Acute fish liver intoxication. Report of 3 cases. We observed an episode of acute fish liver intoxication in which 3 men experienced dizziness, headache, blurred vision, nausea, vomiting, fever, after ingesting the liver of the grouper fish. One of the patients had full-blown symptoms and presented with a higher fever, headache, dizziness, aching pain, and superficial vesicles and bulli of the skin. The treatment was mainly supportive. In the follow-up period, he subsequently developed hair loss and diffuse peeling of the skin, palms, and soles. First of all, if you're eating fish liver, you're eating rancid fish liver juice. Make that make sense. When we came back to the whole thing of, tracking people and doing your homework, the Western A. Price Foundation people, you can track their success story or lack thereof. They're not doing too well. You can look at some of the top people there have died early, and we're getting people who just aren't doing good on fish liver oil. And Western A. Price himself told people about vitamin A toxicity. Western A. Price himself warned people about vitamin A toxicity. And what do these people say? And if we read Grant Rue's book, Poisoning for Profits by Grant Rue, he's got a whole section that shows that areas that ate cod liver oil, specifically Atlantic cod liver oil, which is way higher in vitamin A than others. In Finland, Alzheimer's way higher. I showed this map earlier. The rates of Alzheimer's way higher. And then you go a few miles to the east in Russia, where they weren't eating this stuff, less than 1%. So you can really track this stuff. This thing isn't a poison. This thing isn't genetic. It's not bad luck. It's how badly are you being poisoned? What are you choosing to put in your body and how it's poisoning you? It's that simple, right? And if we know, which we know the liver is a detox organ, and the liver is storing away poisons for you to protect your body, why would you ever eat the organ that is storing away toxins? OGD, did you have a question?
What's going on, bro? Thank you for the great space as always and dropping gems. I have a question regarding cholesterol that you were talking about. Does that also play in the role with like high blood pressure and cholesterol? Because I got a lot of family members who have that. What would you recommend for that?
Yeah, I would recommend they go on a low vitamin A diet and that they do daily walks to start. But you put them on a low vitamin A diet, make it simple for them. They don't have to go strict and extreme like a Granton Rue where he just eats the same thing every day. But you take away their high vitamin A foods, you check and their supplements, and you start accounting for their intake because you'll watch them slowly start to not poison themselves anymore. And it's that simple. Just clean up their liver and then get them soluble fiber.
What would you recommend for soluble fiber? I know you were talking about oats, beans, because I was able to get them stemming away from tomatoes, stemming away from eggs a little bit more, and slowly trying to push out dairy and cheese out. How would you incorporate soluble fiber in their diet?
Yeah, I would make them chilies. I'd make them hummus. I'd get them on beans. I'd get them on organic oats. If they didn't want to do that, I'd make sure they were doing psyllium husk, at least a tablespoon a day mixed in water, and make sure they were pooping. We recycle toxic bile 20 to 70 times, and 95% of our toxic bile gets recycled. So the more you're intercepting that fat soluble toxic bile with soluble fiber, they get married and then they go out into the colon and then they get dumped into the toilet bowl where they belong. Whereas people with cholestasis and toxic bile, they're just recycling their toxicities over and over again, and that's why they feel like shit. That's why they have headaches. That's why they have joint pain. That's why they have all these problems because that toxic bile is not getting out, it's staying in and being recycled. Does that make sense?
That does make sense because I saw your post about how you were saying long-term intermittent fasting is an L, and because the bile doesn't be able to recycle, correct?
Yeah, it's that simple.
I appreciate that, Thor. Thank you so much because my family's like European, so we're Greek, so they love they love their salads, their breads, and everything is obviously different in Europe. But over here in America, when they come back, they always get hit harder. So like they will lose a bunch of weight in Europe, and then they will come back and easily gain, if not more.
Yeah, you hear that all the time. We hear that all the time. You could tell them, hey, the tomato only came to Europe in 1492. It's a newer thing, right? Only in the last 600 years or so have we been eating the tomatoes. Once you know that the tomato is a nightshade, same thing with the eggplant. The eggplant was called crazy apple, male manzana. But the Greeks and the Italians knew that if you ate the eggplant every day for a week or two, you would go insane. You would go crazy. And this is power of a nightshade. And then you have a tomato that's a high vitamin A nightshade. And even when the poor people were eating it, they were brining it, they were taking the skin off, they were cooking it for hours. And it was a low-hanging fruit that was a opposite of a blessing in disguise, right? They thought, oh, here's some easy food, easy to grow, but nothing in life is easy. So it's all about trade-offs. Just because something's easy and convenient, a lot of times that means it's just going to wreck you in the end. And it's a new thing. The tomato was a new thing. Now somehow the tomato is the most popular fruit slash vegetable. It's really a fruit. Type in the most popular vegetable in the world. It's the tomato. And what's funny, it's not even a vegetable. So figure that one out. And then you mix it with the most popular dish with cheese that's high in vitamin A. Then you put some glyphosate flour, and glyphosate slows down ADH, slows down the detox pathway to eliminate the vitamin A, and you have the recipe for a lot of sick people.
That makes total amount of sense. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And the last question, because I don't want to take up too much of the space. My mom is so advocate on yams, sweet potatoes, and she's even like promoting it to the dogs. I'm trying to tell her to stop, but I don't know the reason to. Can you explain that to me so I'm able to elaborate that for her?
Yeah, you can tell her. First off, we had a guy who was eating sweet potatoes every day for years, and he had really bad eczema. And he stopped eating the sweet potatoes, and eventually, within a month or two, his eczema went away. And that's because it's a high vitamin A food: sweet potatoes, carrots, yam. And people will bring up the Japanese centenarians from the blue zones, but if you look at that Japanese potato, it's actually like purple on the outside and kind of more white on the inside. It's not this orange sweet potato that we've become used to as Americans. And then one more thing with the sweet potato is, definitely don't eat the peel. Somehow we got into this thing where the peel is good for us. It's not. It's where the chemical warfare is stored. It's the plant's shield. What's inside the plant is orange. It's high in vitamin A, and it's everywhere. I cringe when I see in the store these baby food dispensers say they'll have a grass-fed beef baby food, and then it's got kale and sweet potato in it. And it's sad because parents think they're doing the right thing and checking the boxes. They don't realize that both kale and sweet potato are toxic to that child. And then you see a lot of these kids getting cradle cap and eczema, and kids are now getting arthritis for the first time. But kale and sweet potatoes with the beef fat, now you're maximizing the absorption of the toxin. Oh, sweet potato with butter, maximizing the absorption. Carrots with butter, maximizing the absorption. I'll text you info that you could kind of show them more of like why this is a real thing and why you shouldn't be doing it.
Thank you so much, Thor, for sharing the information and guiding us through this darkness. I just want to say shout out to one-on-ones, shout out to VK and the GG33 Club, and shout out to Beacon. Thank you for everything you do, and I'll be listening.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if you guys repost, follow, hit up the one-on-ones link right there in the pinned tweet. 8 more members to the lucky 500. Who's going to be the 500th member and get a t-shirt, a hat, and maybe even a one-on-one call? What should we give them? And then we got my man NKC Associates. What's up, bro?
What do you think of salmon?
I don't eat salmon because it's high in carotenoids, it's high fat, and it's either farmed or if it's wild, where is it from? If I'm going to eat fish now, I'll eat it once in a while and I'll eat a low fat white fish and preferably from a clean source if that's even possible. If it's a colorful fatty fish, I'm just out for now because in my opinion, if you are vitamin A toxic like I was, like many of us was, it's just not going to help you get better faster. And when we do the hair mineral test, especially, we're not seeing too good of things in people who are big fish eaters. The reason a salmon is red or orange, if it's not dyed, is because of carotenoids. It's part of the natural diet of the wild salmon, and it's added to the food or farm salmon, and carotenoids are common in plants and animals. All carotenoids come from plants. That's another thing to know, guys. All carotenoids and retinoids and vitamin A's, carotenoids are plant vitamin A. They're the plant pigments responsible for the bright red, the yellow, the orange, the red pepper, the tomato, the dark green, and the most common and familiar carotenoid, beta carotene. And then the carotenoid in the salmon
This is
is
what attacking people's this is attacking people's arteries too. Then, if you're what you're saying, it is I can't even pronounce it.
carotenoids.
Yes, because isn't that the same Latin word for like when you have like a total heart failure? Like he had a swollen and so forth heart. You know what I'm saying? Carotid artery.
Astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is the carotenoid found in salmon. Once your liver has had enough vitamin A stored, your liver will start to give up and it will start to spill out into any and every epithelial tissue. This means the epithelial tissue of the heart. It can be the epithelial tissue of the lungs. It can be the epithelial tissue of the pancreas. Let's just look at this real quick and make it crystal clear, right? And tell me what you guys think about this. Diabetes is a disease of the pancreas, but it's the epithelial tissue of the pancreas. Eczema is a disease of the skin, epithelial tissue of the epidermis. Heart disease and stroke, epithelial tissue of the lining of the blood vessel. Multiple sclerosis, epithelial tissue making up the myelin sheath, which wrap around the nerves. Irritable bowel, Crohn's, colitis, digestive tract, celiac, epithelial tissue making up the digestive tract. Cataracts, epithelial tissue of the eye. Chronic dry eyes is basically eczema of the eyes. It's the epithelial tissue of the tear duct. Dry mouth, dry eyes. Asthma, epithelial tissue disease of the lungs. We can go on and on around the whole body. Kidney disease, epithelial tissue. Liver and cirrhosis, epithelial tissue. So what we really should be calling these is epithelial disease, and what we should really be calling these is epithelial poisoning. And it's that simple. And once we put it in these simple layman's terms, they confuse everyone. They give the same issue, they give it a different name, and they patent it, and they get it a different drug. And the drugs they're giving are just shutting down cytokines. So they're just shutting down the immune system. So you store it away and get way worsely sick in 5 or 10 years. If the drug even works the first year, which many times it does not, it's huge. And you see the human body will cut one provitamin A carotenoid like beta carotene, and it'll cut it into two retinaldehydes. Aldehydes are not good for you. And many people think retinol, it's actually retinaldehydes. So retinoids are a class of chemical compounds that are related to vitamin A. Retinol is the alcohol form. Retinaldehyde is the aldehyde form. Retinoic acid is the worst form, active vitamin A. And then retinol esters, which is esterified storage form. That's what's found in a lot of animal products. And all vitamin A originates in plant carotenoids, and plants and animals are in an evolutionary arms race. This is really important to understand. Carotenoids are created as a plant's defense system. This is so plants can survive and stay around. The beginning is the carotenoid. We eat carotenoids, they're in our system, we break them down into retinoids. Animals eat carotenoids, they break them down into retinoids. When they eat retinoids, we eat them, and we are eating retinoids through their meat, liver, eggs, milk. Now, the reason we do muscle meat, and specifically bison, it's got the lowest amount. This is why you guys see me tweet about these fatty cuts of meat. Animals store toxins in their fat. Right? The liver has the highest amount of these carotenoids. The carotenoids are the plant's defense mechanism. Why would the liver store the highest amount of this chemical warfare? There are no animal retinoids without plant carotenoids. With that said, is this part of what makes us human? Otherwise, we would live forever. So it's a theory that I keep thinking about. I think vitamin A and carotenoids in the plants, you ever see the graph of what would happen if humans and animals ceased to exist? Plants would take over everything. They would cover all the buildings. They would destroy everything. And that's really, we're in an evolutionary arms race, plants versus animals. And people think plant-based, and they think that's the healthy diet, but they don't understand that plants have chemical warfare. And then you have to see that humans break down food carotenoids into the very same retinoic acids that are in the pharmaceutical drugs, the Accutane, the Retin A. 13-cis-retinoic acid is the predominant form of retinoic acid in human urine. That's a fact. And after a meal, the concentration of total retinoic acid is 36% greater compared to fasting subjects. That's when we talk about the kidney, because not only the liver, but the kidney's dealing some with it. Another symptom that we're having people go away is waking up to pee in the middle of the night, or the prostate problems, or the bladder issue. So the bladder doesn't like this thing either. Hey, Chris, what's up, brother? Chris has been low vitamin A for 3 years, guys.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
What's up,
I
my
just
man?
I just wanted to say you were talking about how carotenoids are pretty easily spotted in foods due to their bright color, usually yellow, red, orange, etc. So salmon is colored by astaxanthin, but red meats like beef and your game meats are colored by myoglobin, which is a protein used to store and transport oxygen. So eat your red meat. It's good for you. Doesn't have vitamin A. That's really all I wanted to mention. I've got to get out of here quick, but great spaces.
Thank you. That's a great point. So bioglobin. People will say, oh, you say not to eat a red pepper, a red tomato, but what about red meat? So that's a great point. And then we come to food versus supplement. People will make the grave mistake of saying, oh, it doesn't matter because I'm doing it in a food and a supplement. That's total nonsense.
What if I
Total
use it as a drug though? Like I'll abuse caffeine as a drug. Like if I go boxing or something, like I will take the Alpha Brain, I will take the black coffee, knowing it's poison, but using it as a stimulant, nonetheless. And the next day I do have a terrible hangover. By the way, I was sick as a dog the next day.
No, if you want to take caffeine as a performance enhancing drug, yeah, that's exactly when you do it. The issue is when you make this toxic thing a chronic habit.
So I got really sick. Like I said, I was really under the weather the next day. He was like, "Do you want to train in the sun?" I was like, "Yes." I want to train in the sun, dehydrated for an hour straight, and then the next day I was just, my back hurt. You're not only are you dehydrated, but like it's just like a massive depression because I'm not using coffee daily, right? So the hangover is like that immediately. So
Yeah.
it is a drug, nonetheless. It's a legal drug. It's everywhere. So you think it's normal, but it's really not.
No, yeah, it's on the NCAA doping list.
Yeah, there's a limit. There's definitely a limit. And trust me, when I'm like caffeinated like that, when I'm driving to boxing, the most aggressive driver you've ever seen on the road ever, because I haven't worked out yet, so I'm really anxious. Too much energy, right? I had 2 black coffees, a handful of caffeine pills, like all different types of brands, like Alpha Brains, like I don't even want to name all the different ones. They're all crap. They're all poison. They're all bad bad for you. And like I try not to take the ones I had. Like when I took all the things out of the supplements that you said like don't touch, I had like 2 things left, and they were still poison. It was like not a good inventory I took on all my supplements.
Just how you got accounting for your business, you're accounting for your income. You got to do it. Someone's got to be your accountant for your health. And as you know, sometimes you got to hire a professional or you got to be your own doctor. You got to go into these subjects like you are in a debate class and you've been given the assignment to prove why what you're doing is wrong. And that's what I did with vitamin A. That's what I did with caffeine. That's what I did with other stuff. And once you go from that angle, do this assignment, like find out why vitamin A is bad for you. Once you read enough of that, there's no going back to how it could be good for you.
I found it very interesting that you said a while ago. I don't know what, it was like weeks ago. That you said that like you can't really eliminate it from your diet. All you can really do is like kind of reduce it because it's everywhere. That was the thing that freaked me out about it. That's when I was like, oh crap! It's like the persisting chemicals in our environment. It's something like that. Like it is really like everywhere. So it's just another thing to be aware of. It's not just the estrogenic effect of plastic and like your detergent and so on and so forth. There's now you got to worry about this another thing. I've done all the other fad diets. Like I was a vegan, vegetarian, I was a pescatarian, I was raw. I did a juice diet. I've done everything. And this one is like the one where I like the first time I heard you talk about it, like I was so easy for me to switch because I've done all these fad diets. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, I'll try it. Boom, immediately. And immediately tons of energy. Everyone's telling me to calm down all the time now, which is to tell you that everyone's like low on energy, basically. Everyone's suffering from this.
This is the final destination for a lot of people who did the same thing that we did, which is tried everything. We got the fish oils, we got the liver, we got the plants, we were doing all the eggs and the raw milks. It's very interesting because no matter what fad diet you get into, whatever niche you get into, it seems majority of them are high vitamin A, except the carnivore only muscle meat guys, and then they have a huge issue with soluble fiber. But even the carnivore guys are now getting allured into the milk, the eggs, the liver. The carnivore guys who do liver and girls are the ones who end up in bad shape, and they might not know it at first, which is the hardest part of this conversation. Just how a person doing cigarettes at first might be fine.
I love cigarettes.
And hey, if you're on low vitamin A, the studies show that cigarettes really don't damage you that as much. Not that they're good for you.
No, I'm not. Look, tobacco is like the medicine of Turtle Island, okay? So like you gotta think of it like this. Like, yes, people abuse it. Like they like get like a carton and they just like stress smoke outside a family court every 2 weeks. Like I get it. Like most people don't need cigarettes, right? So how many people are like up at midnight with a corn husk with tobacco they grew themselves making like a prayer smoke? You're not up in the witching hour enough to be using tobacco, most people anyway. They're just smoking because it's like, they're in the alleyway of a McDonald's on their break. Like it's a horrible thing. It's something to fill a void in their life. It's always a waste of money for them, but like they're not really getting any benefit from it. For me though, it's like, I don't know, if I get some like a decent tobacco, like if I like source some organic tobacco or something, like there's little things you can do. Like you can get a little glass tip and like, you don't have to like cheap out and put plastic in it and like, get the bleached zigzag with the GMO paper. Like you don't have to go pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, and wondering why your lungs are like always in pain and so on and so forth. So
What's interesting is people don't realize that tobacco is a nightshade too.
it's a natural insecticide.
Some people praise it for being anti-parasitic, but that means the plant does not want to be consumed. That
Yeah.
same principle can be expended to the spices, the caffeines, the psychedelics, the bitter tasting stuff.
What do you think about psychedelic mushrooms or just mushrooms in general? What's
Yeah,
their what are
it's
they
gonna
like?
be it's gonna be bad for your liver. Anything that's gonna put you in an abnormal headspace and get you high is bad for your liver. So, are you gonna do that once a year as a ceremony to find whatever, or are you gonna keep picking up the phone and keep damaging your liver? The way mushrooms work is you're being poisoned. So,
Oh, of course.
yeah, so just be conscious of that. You have people doing heroes dose. You have people doing everyday microdose, and then their tolerance grows up, and they keep doing it. It's not a
So
good, yeah, it's not a good look for your body. The
I
trade-off,
know.
the
I hear
trade-off
you.
is cool. Do it once, and you have a creative thing, and you become a cool whatever. Do it, abuse it. You don't abuse what you love. You know, you're damaging your liver.
No, I don't touch mushrooms. They terrify me now. I've done them so much and I have abused them before. Like I went to the Spirit Plant conference and this guy from Detroit, he was like a real life ninja, man. He came in and he said like, I want you to like put all your weapons out in a room, turn the lights out, and I want you to just eat your body weight in mushrooms and just sit in that room. And I was like, this guy's crazy, man. But I wonder how his liver is because like he was encouraging people to like macro dose like your body weight, eat as much as you could, and sit in a room. So like I don't know, man.
Yeah, he's damaging people's livers bad. You know,
Oh boy,
that's what he's doing.
I can find this guy too. He was he was a speaker at the Spirit Plant conference in Vancouver at the UBC conference. I could find him. He would be an interesting guy to debate because he was definitely encouraging people to like go ape shit with the mushrooms.
Yeah, listen, all this stuff, ceremonial, sacred, divine, plant medicine, like you're not supposed to abuse it and you're not supposed to put it in the wrong hands and it's not supposed to be a recreational thing. This shit is getting bastardized big time and like and it's getting whacked. It was cool when people like didn't know what it was and it was kind of in the shadows more. Now you have entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley doing articles on Medium about it. You know
Yeah,
what I
and they go to Burning Man in their private jet. They're assholes. They're pieces of shit. It's a great thing that Burning Man is a giant bomb testing facility that's nuclear, so all these people could get radiated. So that's the best part about it, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm kidding. No, you're right. It's become uncool though. It's like these festivals are full of these dorks now. I agree. Like it's kind of like it's no longer about finding yourself or finding your voice. In my opinion, it's like recreational use of anything is stupid. Like it's just dumb. Recreational use of alcohol is stupid. Yeah, that's like a very abused drug. That's pure sugar. Alcohol is just like retinol, and like people love their sugar. So that's like I guess the biggest problem I see has got to be the sugar. No, essentially the retinol, the vitamin A.
No, yeah, toxins beget more toxins. So there's a reason when people drink, they do a lot more toxic behaviors. People drink, they want to smoke more. People drink, they want to do cocaine. People drink, they want to get into a fight. People drink, they abuse their loved ones. People drink, they damage their liver, their self-inflicted wounds. These same people, if you gave them a knife, they wouldn't cut their wrist, but they're internally cutting themselves with a known toxic alcohol. Now, when we show you that vitamin A goes down the same detox pathway as ethanol, so vitamin A goes down the same detox pathway as tequila and vodka, then you start to see what this thing does to people as far as symptoms: fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Type in PubMed, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and retinol or vitamin A. All the studies are there, So these things really aren't even a debate. It's kind of just now making people conscious of it, and it's the same combo of, oh, you don't think Europeans were the one that discovered this land? Well, do you think they're the one that discovered the vitamin? Same type of combo. And we know history's a lie, but what people don't know is nutrition is the biggest lie. And what we don't know is that there was an arms race to discover these quote unquote vitamins, and that they worked hand in hand with big pharma and some of the Rockefeller research of the modern day medicine, not Western medicine, because the founder of Western medicine is Hippocrates, and Hippocrates' oath says do no harm. These doctors have totally lost touch with that. Josh, what's up, Josh?
Hey, what's up, Thor? I wanted to say something that's kind of going back to what you and Chris were talking about. I found a study. I could send it to you or tag you in that was looking at the total carotenoid content of grass-fed cattle versus grain-fed cattle, and it was actually showing that the total vitamin A content, beta carotene, and retinol content is a lot higher in the liver and muscle meat of grass-fed cattle over grain, which I just thought was interesting, going back to the phytochemicals and the antioxidants in the grass or whatever, that green color that the cows are eating. I just don't know if that could maybe make a difference for people.
No, yeah, for sure. It's like, are you eating the beef liver from a grass-fed beef, which many of these health guys are, and how old is that animal? Meaning, how long did it take accumulating vitamin A? I don't care too much about the grass-fed muscle meat. It's another reason I do the bison. But yeah, if the animal is doing a low vitamin A grain, then you have to ask, like for the chickens, for example, I won't eat a chicken that's fed yellow corn or soy. I want to find out like what kind of feed are they giving these animals. So it's a good point. And people are still getting vitamin A toxic from chicken livers too, especially these chicken liver pates where they add butter and fat to it, which makes it even more bioavailable. I remember seeing a lot of people who say, hey, cook your carrots in butter because the vitamin A is more bioavailable. Yeah, that's a bad thing. Your body, obviously, in some cases, the people who eat it without it are better off, but it's just another sign that like the body didn't want that thing. So you have to trick the body to emulsify it in fat to make it bioavailable. What sense does that make? What's up, NKC Associates?
Oh man, when you talk, dude, I just opened a notebook, so when you're talking, I gotta take notes because like there's like a million things I wanted to say what you just said. I just don't want to interrupt you. Your flow is so like dynamic, so I don't want to interrupt it.
Oh, it's all good, brother.
Like I really appreciate the vitamin A diet. Honestly, like the removal of it from me, like the energy levels are unbelievable. Like even my boxing trainer was like, "Well, you haven't trained with me for a year." And I just boxed with him. I just had my best session with him ever. And I'm rusty, I should have ring rust and so on and so forth. And I was just killing it. So the energy levels are just like I'm just bouncing off the wall with the energy. It's like I can run. I can just keep on running until I'm like, look at my time. I'm like, well, I can't run forever. I got to get back to my home, right? So it's like I don't get exhausted anymore. I don't get run down. I will sweat through my clothes all the way through them. Doesn't bother me anymore. I don't get like overheated. That's another thing I noticed. Like I could be in the direct sun all day, not burn. That's another very good thing. I used to be very fair skinned, so I'd go into the sun next day, and this is in Canada, I would be burned, peeling, so on and so forth. So now it's like I can go in the sun in Miami day after day after day, sleep outside, wake up in the sun, be in the sun all day. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not normal. Most people can't do that, especially if they're like European descent. Like if you have low melanin, like theoretically we're not supposed to be able to be in the sun all day, but I can do that, no problem now.
Yeah,
So that's a lot.
what's normal is not natural, and what's natural is not normal, and we've normalized a lot of bullshit. And I have 80% Irish, Scottish, whatever. I'm pretty much Irish and Italian. I don't get sunburned at all. I get golden, bronze, tan. And when I went to LA and we were outside all day, my friend who's half black, half white got burnt, and I didn't get burnt. And it was a whole big conversation of like, yo, why isn't Thor burnt? And like, I'm black and I'm burnt. And I'm like, because you got vitamin A, you got retinoids, and not, but to be also, they're from New York and they weren't out in the sun like that ever. And they just went out in the midday and they got blasted. But that toxic retinoids was expelled from their epidermis. That's a clear indicator of vitamin A toxicity. Sunburn, sun poisoning is vitamin A toxicity. And back to your point of working out, yeah, same thing. This is how we were designed to be. We were designed to be able to go. I feel it too. I did jujitsu a lot, and now if I go to an open mat, and same thing, I got a lot of rust. I took like a year off, and people are like, yo, what the fuck, man? And it's like, yeah, like I have a new gear. And not to mention that not only do I have a new gear, but there's no fear. Not that there was before, but it's even a new level of, you don't want to be overly confident and cocky because like obviously there's killers out there who've trained way more than me and like, I wouldn't be prepared for. But I really have this vibe of like, and this comes back to one of the things I originally said first in the space, like, I can tell now why Original Man was out here hunting beasts with no problem. Like, I could tell, like, I could be like, you could put me in a tribe right now, like, yo, let's go. And this is another thing I always mention with the Joe Rogan podcast with the Asian guy who created the Facebook mural, and he became super rich off the Facebook mural, and he just got so bored that he started traveling all the most dangerous areas, like in Africa and stuff. And I forget the tribe he was with, but he was like, yo, these guys just run forever. They don't stop to get water. They don't, like, they're ripped. They can jump high. And I'm like, yeah, those guys are, not only have they been on a low vitamin A diet their whole lives, their fathers were, their grandfathers were. So, like, not only are we what we eat, we are what our parents ate. We're what our grandparents ate. The most important part of this conversation is what you're eating, and your toxicity level right now will have everything to do with how your children are produced. And you have toxic people giving birth to toxic children. And what do we know about this toxicity and aging is the older these people get, the more toxins they accumulate. And if women are having children in their 30s now instead of their 20s, what they're really doing is they're having their children at more of a toxic state. And then you look into the low vitamin A community, and you're seeing women in their mid 30s and 40s giving birth to perfectly healthy, normal children. And it's just another clear indicator that this is not aging, it's poisoning, right? You want to laugh in the face of all these anti-aging gurus and biohackers. You guys are privy to a really great, what is still kind of a secret, what I think will be mainstream pretty soon. Like, we're going to see this vitamin A conversation go mainstream. Watch. And we're going to see some big power players trying to make it like we're crazy. But we're not crazy. And there's too much evidence. If you put me on a stage with these guys, Saladino and whoever else, they are done for. Straight up. They're done for. There's no argument. Because his argument is just take less. So you're admitting it's toxic. Why do I have to take less? Imagine telling me to eat less steak. Come on, bro. Guys,
People tell me that to me all the time.
they tell you to eat less steak, right? And they're
But
wrong.
yeah,
But guys, I gotta go. I gotta get some steak right now, actually.
of course.
So great spaces. Follow everyone. Like everything except people eating liver. And if you like this conversation, join us in one of ones. Try out the low vitamin diet. We give enough information now for free online that you could pretty much try this diet for yourself. And then if it's going well, great. If you're a little confused and need help, come join us in one of ones and let's go. Let's level up. Appreciate y'all rocking with me. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And the first live stream we're going to do on YouTube is on the 28th. So I'll see y'all there. Peace out, everyone.